you and us here. But if you want me to not share the live to them, it's also up to you. Yeah.
Oh, no, you can do that. I have no worries at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So we make live because then we have an extra copy just in case, just in case Zoom has problem, we have an extra copy. So just give me a moment. We are live already and I'm sharing it with all our girls there. And then we start straight away. We are trying to reach 100 as soon as possible.
Oh, okay. So everybody's, I don't know, because here online, I don't see anyone here, but I think we are
No,
linked.
here
They'll
it
be
is
joining
one to
in.
one. Here it is
Okay.
one to one.
Right, right.
Because in the initial meetings, everyone preferred one to one. So then I already, because it's a part of research, but when the number grew, then we started sharing with other speakers because then you will have viewership actually by midnight. Some people have already watched you.
Okay.
So even now,
And
live,
this,
like last time, people watched live YouTube as well. So that's
so this goes as an unedited live.
live.
thing.
But we will close the live as soon as we have the edited version because sometimes our speakers have in the past said they want to share. So, like this conversation is not required in the editing, no? So that needs to be
Right.
go out. So, but
Yes.
we keep it. Usually we keep it. So until the edited version is going out. Okay. I'm taking seat and yeah. Do you need any more time or we can get started?
I'm good to go.
Okay. Do you have your water or chai or coffee?
All done already. Yes, I'm set. No worries.
Okay. Okay. So I go for recording. Warm greetings. Welcome to today's session on women in architecture. The discussion on women in architecture is about understanding the nuances of being women in the profession, and it is placed in the larger purview of being in the field of built environment, especially for those women who started their career with architecture education. The session is conducted with the support of Eco Development and Research Cell, a not-for-profit initiative of the Environmental Design Consultants EDC Ahmedabad. This is Mansi Bhargava from the House of EDC and also the host for the discussion. We are glad to take up this study with women engaging in practice and pedagogy of the built environment in order to celebrate the presence and participation of women in shaping the built environment. The objective here is to learn, document, and disseminate the biographical journey of women who chose practice, research, education, arts, activism, and a mix of some of them in a multi-transdisciplinary approach to chart their career path. Through the study, we wish to acknowledge and appreciate their contribution in the profession, bring forth the critical points that needs to be addressed at individual, institutional, and collective levels as what makes or breaks or tweaks the career of women architects in the country. The study allows to implicitly understand how women maneuver their lives to find their purpose of being in the profession, and which also helps us explicitly build role models for current and future generation of not only women but the entire architecture fraternity. It's a call for action to realize the need for an equitable architectural profession because we wish to advance towards an equitable and sustainable built environment. The method we are using in this research or study is called autoethnography, which in simple words means the life journey of the person whom we are interacting with and the researcher's pen, which is me here today. And the method includes semi-structured open-ended questions followed by an output which we are aiming in two formats. One is a video series. We have already now 70 conversations available, open access to everyone, and the target to achieve 100 conversations and then come up with a coffee table book for everyone. Today, we have Sabina Khanna as our speaker and who is going to share about her life journey. Thank you so much, Sabina, for taking out time. And I'm so sorry that I have been nagging after you for almost a year now. And thanks for finding out time to take this conversation. Just to make you informed, that in this conversation, it is about sharing the worries and the wisdom by the woman, for the woman, of the woman in the built environment. And I've just designed it in a such a way as a disciplined manner, like a master class, so that it goes eventually in the mainstream education of architecture. Before I invite you, as a protocol, I would also like to put your short biography. You have an extensive life of career and very flourishing. A short biography on record. Sabina Khanna is founding principal of Studio KIA, a globally awarded multidisciplinary design firm delivering projects across master planning, urban design, hospitality, institutional, luxury residential, large-scale mixed-use developments. And she raised amidst the design legacy of Chandigarh, and which already speaks volumes and which has shaped her built environment for over 4 decades. Sabina is the president of National Architecture Council of the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and she is a widely recognized writer, speaker, curator, juror, and design critic. And I must add, mentor too for many of us. We look up to her. And for her, architecture is the way of life. Sabina, we talked about your career in brief, and today I would like to know Sabina, the girl, the woman. Are you all set?
Sure. Thank you so much, Mansi. That has been very enlightening. Very good to know about what Women in Architecture is doing and what you are doing across so many talks with the women, which eventually has to come out as a coffee table book. That's going to be an immense research that you're actually doing. So happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we are already here for now more than 5 years, to be honest, but it has been overwhelming to hear and really heartwarming for me, to be honest, to hear all of you as role models. I'm going to start with very simple conversation and take you back to your high school days. And every woman who has come to our platform has actually enjoyed this reflecting time because
Right.
in principle you don't have time. So now it's a time for reflection. High
So
school
true.
days, your family setup, friend setup, surroundings, and because you are from Chandigarh, not much needs to be as a surprise. But what brought you to architecture education? Why did you join architecture?
Oh, quite great. So, Mansi, you do take me back to my childhood and feels
Yes.
nostalgic.
Yes,
So
that's
yes,
the plan.
I was born in Chandigarh, which is the mecca of modern architecture in India. Chandigarh has a very rich living legacy. And I was not only born in that city, but I was born into a household to an architect father and an
Okay.
artist mother. So born and raised in an environment of design and architecture from the very beginning. And that is literally what I saw around me, and it came to me naturally. As a natural progression, it was because that is what was around me, you know.
Mhm.
And so that is how architecture just happened. I was never made to take it up. I was never asked to take it up. But
Mhm.
since that is what I saw always around me throughout my childhood, and so it was just a very natural progression to take it up as a profession.
Interesting. So that brings me very quickly to a question, and it's going to be a very interesting discussion with you. And the genesis of this research project, is the fact that architecture fraternity is male dominated and so on and so forth. Did you actually realize during the college time this aspect? Personally, I did not, but at some point it did hit me, and probably that was the beginning of the thinking about this research. Uh, how was it in your college time, in your early career? Did you also live this way that, oh, I can conquer the world, there's nothing like gender, and everything is, oh, I can do whatever I wish to? What was it for you then? And in this conversation, maybe you can also take us through a little bit from your academic journey. Yeah.
So, Mansi, yes, of course. Like I mentioned, I came from a very, very liberal household
Mm.
where me and my brother, we are just two siblings,
Mm.
and we could just do what we wanted, study what we wanted. Of course, he also is an architect. He also studied
Mhm.
architecture, and so it was a very liberal bringing up, and in college as well, much as they say now that we really have a lot of girls, in
Mm.
college academically. But in my batch, out of a batch of 65, we were only 12 girls. So it
Oh.
was pretty overwhelming in class as it is. But since I was already subtly ingrained in the profession, in having
Mm.
grown up in that environment of traveling with my parents and, with my father to his sites and seeing construction and seeing projects taking shape and being inaugurated and those very large scale. So architecture as such was very overwhelming for me. And I really wanted that. For me, architecture always meant that it's going to be about creating projects and making people happy around me, because it's
Mm.
eventually it's always about people. So it was always very overwhelming of how architecture is going to be. And yes, throughout college, it was always that feeling that, like you mentioned, yes, I am going to conquer the world. I am going to create something big because my profession entails that I'm going to leave something, or, footprints on on the
Mm.
face of this earth. So I am a very important person. I'm doing a very important profession because I'm
Mm.
creating something for the people around me. They have to inhabit the
Mm.
spaces that I
Mm.
create. So that is how
Mm.
it was always in college.
Very interesting. But did you really feel the gender aspect while studying or in the early career, or do you still think that it has affected your way of practice or your way of being a woman in the profession? Did gender matters to you?
I'll be honest with you, it did not ever matter to me.
Yes.
Like I said, I grew up in a very liberal environment.
Yes.
Even though we were, as girls, we were in a minority in my particular batch also, but never felt that. I think we
Mm-hmm.
always got a very level playing field to
Mm-hmm.
start our careers on, to even during education. So that kind of never was felt, that
Mm-hmm.
as a gender, we are women. And that is why
Yes.
when many still address us as women architects, I keep telling them, no, I'm an architect. I'm just happen to be
Architect.
a woman in architecture, but I'm an
Yes.
architect. I'm not a woman
Yes.
architect, and
Yes.
I hold by that. And I tell
Mm.
everybody young, because lots of young girls come up to me, ma'am, I'm a woman architect. I said, no, you're not. You're an architect. And that's what you've got to respect about yourself. So it was never about, about
Mm-hmm.
gender or being a woman in the profession. And I think
Mm-hmm.
also the support system around me,
Yes.
very
I was
healthy
coming
and
to
very
that. Yes.
supportive. So
Mm.
one never felt that way, that you're
Mm.
a woman
Mm.
in the profession.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
So, in a way, actually, and I will put again because this is more of a reflection for my thesis also, which I am doing here. In a way, we do you think that we are kind of privileged in the profession? I mean, in the sense that we don't feel that differentiation or discrimination. But out there, from my research and understanding of the subject, now I am diving into this subject for nearly 10 years, but research started much later. I feel out there is a gender issue in architecture profession per se. I mean, that's the study tells me. And of course, personal experiences are very different. And here we are trying to capture personal experiences. Uh, how is it with you in the early career? And of course, now things have changed over the time. Meeting with clients, going to the site, and also Punjab, Chandigarh has a very different way of doing things. Delhi, for that matter, you have been working there as well. Uh, do you think that gender actually has been blurred in this profession in that part of the country? And based on your experience and maybe your colleagues' experience, how is it?
So, okay, there were certain different parts to this question.
Hmm.
Is
Yes.
that from very early on,
Hmm.
I, for once, have always been a workaholic.
Hmm.
And when I say that, I say because of the passion that, for the
Hmm.
profession that I have. I've always held it very close to heart.
Hmm.
And also having grown up with it around me, it's always been
Hmm.
a way of
Hmm.
life for
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
So even when I was to choose my partner and my way forward, I was very clear. I am
Hmm.
going to marry an architect because
Hmm.
I have to practice, you know,
Hmm.
And that was very clear, very early on, very early on. So that support system around me also has been very strong in the sense
Mm,
that I married an architect,
mm,
and subsequent the family and my parents and everybody has
mm,
been very, very supportive.
mm,
But yes, early on in the career, when you joined the practice, the clients did want, since I've always spearheaded the design in the studio of the office,
mm,
the clients always wanted to interact about designs with me. Drawings, they always wanted to interact with Sabina, give me the client brief. We have always been doing very large scale projects from the very
mm,
start. But when it came to asking for our professional fees, they did
mm,
not want to discuss with me. They wanted to discuss with my husband, with Rajiv. So
mm,
many a times where we had the one-to-ones where the architects are, where the clients are discussing their projects with me, and I would say, okay, all right, this stage goes through. I'm going to raise a bill. Please make sure you release the fees. Then it
mm,
would come back to Rajiv because they did not want me to raise that aspect of
mm,
professional fees. So that is
mm.
where I only felt
Negotiations.
the gender bias, but very early on in the profession, till later on, they realized that if they could talk to me about work, they could talk to me about the fees and profession, and professional fees as well. So then
Mm-hmm.
really there has never been any, as I could say, any stumbling block as far as
Mm-hmm.
gender is concerned. It's always been good, even whether it's been on construction sites or interacting with clients or consultants. It's always been good. They've understood that,
Yeah, it's an
this architect
education.
means
Yeah.
business. This
Yeah,
architect
it's an
means business.
education for them, awareness that yes, women are also
Absolutely.
there. So
Absolutely. And I'm
that's
sure,
that.
and I
Yeah.
do see things have changed over time. Things
Yes,
have much
absolutely.
changed over time. But yes,
Yes.
like I mentioned, this is my personal experience. Out
Yes.
there, things still are very different in various parts of the country.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is also actually has come out in couple of interactions. Like in your case, it is the fee. In some cases, like on site, when both of us go there, all the male contractors and laborers, they want to interact with sir and not me, even if it is my project. And these things are coming out. And I think it is good if we discuss, then we are also creating awareness about that it happens, then people are more conscious.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
it was few times, and then also the society, which has been highly patriarchal, they also learn about accommodation. And these conversations are also to make people accommodate, I mean, the other genders' expertise in that way. That
Yeah.
brings me to a very tricky question. You can choose to answer or not answer. And I have asked it to almost everyone, and I'll give you the reason why I asked this question. And the question is, does it make a difference? And you already made this very clear upfront that you were clear that you would like to have a partner who is in the same profession. But over the years, and with your colleagues also, so this question I extend with your experience of your colleagues and friends from the peer group and from junior colleagues. Do you think it really matters whether your spouse is from the same profession or not from the same profession for a woman in architecture?
Well, I can just speak on, for myself, where I did
Of
mention
course.
that I was very clear that I wanted to, have an architect as a partner because I wanted to work, since I'm very passionate about the profession. But having said that, and he has been very, very supportive, my family has been very supportive. But having said that, I can just say that if your partner is from the same profession, it does make things a little
Mm,
easier because you
mm.
both can be working together, you are understanding each other's work,
Yes.
at times, because in case, and it's not that that always happens. There are
Mm.
people who are in different professions and things are still going good.
Yes.
But I consciously chose that I would definitely want an architect as a partner. And from the day I've been married, from day two of my marriage, I've been in the studio, and I've been in the studio ever since for the last 4 decades. So that
Yeah.
has been definitely a big support. And I think that conscious, decision of mine was in the right direction, and that is what I
Mm.
always wanted. Because
Mm.
working, and practicing architecture brings me pleasure. And that is
Mm.
what I've always been doing.
Mhm. I asked this question, now I give the justification because I didn't want to influence in your Ant's response, is when we look into the documents and the way the profession has shaped. I mean, we grew up with educating ourselves in schools and colleges. All the leading architects of the world and of the country were male. I'm really hoping after these conversations I'm having with 100 women, we have more names. Of course, you people are already famous in the profession and in the country. But when I look through the grains of the famous male architects of the country and the world, many of them had their spouse as women architects. So they have also had the same profession. And somewhere their identity is either by choice or somehow the societal setting is like that, that their identity is unknown or they did not get the due acknowledgement of their contribution to the same office. Uh, and I don't want to name anybody, but it is because it is not about naming and shaming. But somewhere, the backbone of these offices, many successful male architects' offices have been run by their spouses with having no clear acknowledgement and appreciation of their contribution. And that's why this question becomes interesting for me to find out how people have navigated, having.
I do agree with you where you're saying yes. Lots of known firms have both partners as architects, and one has not really heard much about the woman as a partner
Yes,
in profession. You're
yes,
right. You're right that has been the case, but I could just say fortunate enough
of course.
for myself.
Yes.
We
Yeah,
are
and
we
that's
are
true.
both practicing in unison, and it has been going good.
Yeah, and the fact that you actually tick mark this whole box that if you are really driven, I mean, it's like a sunlight. You want to cover it up, but you cannot stop the rays from
Absolutely.
emitting across.
Absolutely.
And you are a classic example for
I know.
that.
Yeah. And for that matter, why should anyone? Just in case if
Yes.
I mean, if you are working, you are practicing, then why stop that sunlight? Let it be
Yeah.
on everyone and let it shine. Let everyone shine bright.
Yes, and no, in the sense that many things are not done intentionally. It happens because of the societal setting we
Yes,
have.
I
And
can
then women
understand that.
also choose. Sometimes women also choose. I mean, I know some people who chose this a life situation where they would not like to be in the limelight for that matter, which are rare cases for that matter. That brings me to a question of again, very tricky, but I think it's every woman's life stage. There are stages in life when women have to make choices. Probably it was much clearer in your case, but still carrying this hat of pushing your passion, having a good profession, and at the same time having a very good personal life, which is we call it as a balanced life. And again, I will say that you and me, people like us, we have been very fortunate to find our passion, bring it to the profession, and make a personal life also out of it, where we have blurred boundaries between life and work.
Absolutely.
We are
Yeah.
living it kind of situation. uh, what is your mantra to find this balance? Because you are among those people whom we look up to as how to really conduct your profession. I mean, of course, we don't know about your personal life, but it's also a reflection of a person, like when you are happy and doing things, but there has to be some mantras which you take the important decisions in life. And maybe those are useful because I'm again asking this question from a point that, as you said in the beginning, there are many women getting into education, probably not in your batch, but in my batch, in my college time, we were equal, boys and girls. But the study tells that the majority of the dropout for women in architecture is during their early career, marriage, children, raising the children, and then returning to the profession brings lack of confidence and all those kind of things. How did you navigate your life and still stay strong as you were in the beginning of the career?
Well, Mansi, yes, like you mentioned, it is indeed a little tricky question, which every woman is asked, work-life balance,
Yes.
and work life has become balanced now with after many
Love
years. It
over
was
time.
truly a juggle initially, let me be honest. But
Yes.
like I said, a great support system, around me, my parents, my husband, we're all from the same profession. We
Mm,
speak the same language. It has
mm,
actually now filtered down or gone down to the next
mm,
generation, our children, all from the same profession. So
mm,
literally, our professional and personal lives have been very, very blurred, you know.
mm,
And
mm,
many a times now that we look back, and I often wonder that whenever we are together, we're always talking about profession, you know. It's really not so personal because, and that
mm,
is how we have been tuned, we
mm,
have chosen ourselves to be like that. We get pleasure in just discussing, I won't call it
mm,
work, but discussing design all the
mm,
time, in
mm,
everything. Suddenly, because
mm,
you've been nuanced to see design in everything, in
mm,
everybody around you. So,
mm,
that is how it becomes. So,
mm,
but yes, I think you're right. Women do drop out societal
mm,
pressures. They need to, but they do need that hand holding from the
mm.
partner, most certainly, number one, when they're wanting to come back to the
Yes.
profession, or from the family, which is
Mm,
very important, where they understand, where everybody wants an educated partner, but then not
mm,
wanting them to, or not supporting them to come back to work, is a dichotomy. That is where
yes.
that person needs a support. Your spouse needs
Mm,
a support to come back. But also, I keep telling to lots of young ones to whom we mentor, we said architecture as a profession is so wholesome in its study and education that
mm,
one does not necessarily have to come back, to practice architecture. You can do so
mm,
many things which are related to the profession and yet be
mm.
connected to it, you know,
Yes.
because we are taught so many disciplines across it that
Yes.
you don't have to give up. Don't just say, hey, I can't practice architecture, I can't open my firm, or I can't go to a office to work, so hence I'm not practicing architecture. There is so
Mm,
much more you could do. You could
mm,
teach, you could do research, you could do product designing,
mm,
you could do research of materials, you could do so many more things.
mm,
So
mm,
there are very many ways, I feel, to stay connected with the
mm,
profession, but it's only that you have to have that kind of a mindset. And yes,
mm,
definitely in our patriarchal society, you have to have the support of the
mm,
partner and the family, which
mm.
goes a long way. And
Absolutely.
I've been kind of blessed where I had my inner feeling, my gut, my own passion, which was supported equally by my family, so that I have actually found that perfect, touch wood, the work-life
Mhm.
balance.
Yes. I asked this question also with the very fact that the way the profession is shaped, many of us, I mean, I'm again talking in a larger purview, not between you and me, what we have gone through, but many of the architects who have diversified their field, and you put it so nicely, and I want to just share an incident here. This diversification of doing different things, in a way, I call it delimiting the very definition of architecture, because when we were educated, we were told architecture means making buildings. I mean, I am working on water for nearly 30 years and trying to make sure that water is part of architecture. I have not succeeded, but I found the passion and profession out there. And I can also share with you now, Sabina, because in last 70 sessions, we have actually had a woman who have done so many different things and not limiting themselves to just constructing building. Of course, constructing building is one of the aspects, but then the diversification or the delimitation of the definition of architecture itself is a big thing, which has not come in a big way in the profession because we still look at it like that. But I
Yeah.
think that's quite liberating for women also, that they don't have to, put themselves into the same shoe as go to office and do this and only do this. I know one of my student is doing only kitchen design. One of my student is doing only color design for buildings and big buildings, only light design for big buildings. And it is so humbling to see after 30 years in the profession that people are finding these niches, you know. It wasn't like that when we started probably our career, that you have these specialized people who are just focusing on it and this kind of thing. So that's quite interesting. I mean, people are working on natural architecture, vernacular architecture. You can just keep on naming those things.
Absolutely. I mean, during our time, we had when we designed, when we started, we had an architect, an engineer, and a contractor. But now,
Okay.
even any building or any space that you're designing, you are engaging specialist consultants. You have a
Yes.
facade designer, you have somebody for acoustics, you have
Yes.
somebody
Yes.
for materials at times, you have,
Yes.
so you have, I mean, even in landscapes now, there are separate for
Yes.
soft landscape and hard
Yes.
landscapes. And,
Yes.
there are, you have somebody who's just doing your fit outs. Within the
Yes.
interior domain, also, you have different segregation. Like you
Yes.
mentioned, just a color specialist, just a lighting
Mm.
specialist.
Yes.
So there are so many avenues to diversify in, and yet feel that you're connected and contributing to the profession.
Absolutely. So how do you think, like, as a woman in architecture, how do you think that it is shaping the way built and the design and the business you are following? Do you see in any difference in your approach and Rajiv's approach in a project? Or I mean, I'm sure contestation is part of life, and we should have different opinions. We should not be in, opinionated about others, but at the same time, we have to have our own ideas. Do you think that having different opinion, different way of doing things, or design approach or business approach, uh, that men have a different way and women have a different way? What is your experience about it, and how do you come to a consensus in your case?
Mansi, I think women as such are more sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
Women can multitask. Women think at different levels. Women have a little more humane corner than
Mm-hmm.
men because they feel differently.
Mm-hmm.
And these
Absolutely.
are the strong points and the values that they bring even to the designs that they are
Mm-hmm.
doing. You know, if I say you are to create an urban space,
Mm-hmm.
or so I feel women bring in a greater inclusivity into that in terms of whether it is gender or it is abilities, they
Mm-hmm.
keep everything in mind. They would
Mm-hmm.
probably think of designing those spaces from a women's safety point of view,
Mm-hmm.
you know, which men would also do, but certain deeper aspects that they might just overlook. Women bring in those kind of aspects, I feel, more of inclusivity,
Details.
more of, yeah, those details, because a woman is built that way. A woman thinks
Mm,
that way, even in her work, at home with her family, with her children. She will just get into those little details, and that is what
mm,
also reflects when she is designing any project,
mm.
especially
It's
spaces, because where people are involved.
mm,
So
mm,
women think differently. So those are
mm.
those nuances that I'm sure they definitely bring in, which add value to every project.
Absolutely. And it's also complementarity to look broadly and then to look into details of everything. And both scales are
Absolutely.
required, and we need to find some kind of balance in it. So, this is a good moment also to ask you about what kind of architectural work or who inspire you most, and maybe some one or two of your favorite projects that really moved you. I know every project is for every architect like a baby. It's very difficult to choose that this is my favorite baby, just like any mother, So it's extremely difficult. But still, I mean, there are certain people who influence our life or inspire us. It's a good moment that you should please share it.
Okay, like you said, it's been a long journey, 4 decades in the profession. Practicing and designing buildings and spaces has been a long journey, and each project is
Yes.
special. And even what you're working on today, you feel that yet another special project still has to happen. It's still in the making. And the complexion of the practice has changed over the years.
Yes.
It keeps changing every few years. There have been times when we have been doing a lot of master planning and urban design
Mm,
projects on
mm,
large scale. And then there
mm,
have been when we've been designing large scale luxury high-rise
mm, mm,
communities, living residential communities, and then hospitality, and then big time was interiors, into
mm.
hospitality interiors across all hotels across the country, and into amusement. We've done a lot of segments into amusement parks and water parks and snow
Mm,
parks.
mm,
So the practice has been changing complexion every few years, and
mhm.
we've done it all. But having said that, well, the inspiration for me very much started at home with my parents, my
Yes.
father, with whom
Yes.
I kept traveling to all his sites. My father came from the government practice. He was into government
Okay.
service, and he was chief architect of Haryana and Himachal for
Wow.
almost 2 decades, you know. And
Mm,
so having traveled with him and having seen him actually construct or design that large infrastructure for cities is where
mm.
I always, as a kid, imagined that architects only do big projects.
Big
They
things.
don't do small projects. Because I would
Yes.
always see him designing universities and
Yes.
hospitals and campuses and, those all of those very large scale buildings. So for me, it
Mm.
always meant, I'm going to be doing large scale projects for people.
Mm-hmm.
So there have been very many projects that have really touched my heart. One
Mm-hmm.
of them, of course, we finished some time back was a prestigious project for the Goa government in Goa. We
Okay.
did the district headquarters in
Mm-hmm.
Margao in South Goa, which was a building where we researched a lot about the local vernacular architecture and then
Mm-hmm.
designed it in that style because it's a
Mm.
people's building. That's where people have to
Yes.
go to with their, for their
Yeah.
work and their problems. So that is a building that was very well complemented,
Mm.
both from the honorable minister, the chief minister, to the man who walks on the road and sees the building.
Mm. Mm.
So hence that was a very, very heartening project. And also during our practice, we have also delved into something which was very different. And
Mm-hmm.
we actually started our own retail outlet. I had it for
Okay.
two
Wow.
years. That was
Mm-hmm.
a very, very interesting one. We had our own retail outlet, which was like, retailing lifestyle products of anything and
Mm-hmm.
everything you have to do for a house, whether it was
Okay.
furniture, carpets, rugs, to all the crafty stuff of stained glass, papier-mâché, etc., leather, lights, and all of that. So that was very heartening because of the very site where it was located. It was an old school, an old madrasa, with classrooms that we converted. We hand painted each window, each jamb, each door, converted those into galleries. And we started interacting directly with craftsmen across the country, and
Mm-hmm.
we would take products from them. And not
Mm-hmm.
just products. I mean, if we had products, say, which was stained glass or it
Mm.
was papier-mâché, we would find out the age-appropriate
Mm.
craft of what that is. And then we reached out to the
Mm-hmm.
nearby schools and we would invite those children over to have workshops with the craftspeople. So it was a very
Mm-hmm.
different kind of a retailing. It wasn't just picking up a product and selling. We were actually taking the craft to the schools and
Yes.
having the school children interact with the craftspeople. So that has been those 2 years was a very, very satisfying experience and a very different experience, one of
Mm.
learning, and that was very, very
Absolutely.
joyful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just shifting to the last phase of the conversation here and coming up with two questions which are extremely important, I feel. And it goes beyond you as a person, but talking about when we started this conversation. And I want to give example before I pose the question here. When I really started jumping into doing this research, of course, it was in my head for quite some time, and by then I was already public speaker and going to all over the country talking about things. And then I started also talking about women in architecture. And I would ask them at at the convention or in the speech, name five well known or famous, as we use the word, great women architects of the country, students, teachers, everybody in the hall would struggle to name 5 women architects. And not to my surprise at all, because I was already reading the literature for more than a decade when I started asking this question. But the fact that people did not, even teachers themselves and students did not see the teachers as architects, because teachers are teachers, they are not architects, something like that, yeah. And then I would remind them that if you don't remember any big names, at least you can name your teachers. I mean, this was the kind of first awareness thing I started working on. And
Right.
that brings me to the question that actually, when we look at women in architecture in the country, we still find a lot of women making it to academic journey, which is fine, absolutely fine. But the
Yeah.
way profession is educating ourselves in the school is to make you a consultant. It's more in that format. And I consider both as profession, but if you can understand what I'm trying to come to, when a person is practicing, we call the person as professional. When the person is teaching, is educator or teacher. But both inherently are architects.
Absolutely.
But
Yes.
the perception, even in architecture education and in profession, is that those who are practicing are architects, those who are not architects. And that was for me quite shaking, to be honest. And that is where I am also more convinced why it is important for the country and especially for the profession. And council must work on it a little bit. And good to see that you have Vicky now as a women's council and also architecture council within it as a sub council. The fact that even in education, not many women also go to the higher post of the education. So I looked through when I started this series of conversation, there were not even 10% of women who are leading the architecture schools. So even there is a shortage of leadership. And then again, the next layer is, and even in the so-called profession or practice, as we call it, there is a shortage of well-known women. It's not that everybody has to be well-known, but Sabina, you are already a leader. You know how it matters. If I see 100 women as leaders or women architects, in the profession, it's a signal that women are also doing very good and it is a profession for them. Where do you think women are really lacking that space? Why are we not there in the top 10, 20? I mean, not that, I mean, I know most of the women whom I have spoken outside this conversation, very senior people also, name does not matter. But personally, I feel because of this research also, I am strongly believing it matters because it affects the society. More and more societal actors, contractors, parents will know that women can make a career out of it. But where are we lacking as women in architecture, not making it to the top charts?
Yes, you're right, Mansi. Having said all of this, while we do have women-led practices, we do have, but architecture is still a patriarchal society.
Mm,
Also, I feel is that women who do lead practices
mm,
are either just working and doing good work and not seeking that name
mm,
and fame because they are just
That's
honest
also
to their
true.
work.
Mm,
That's honest
mm,
to their work. They are doing
mm.
good work, and there are very many out there. There
Yes,
are so many
absolutely.
women-led practices that we don't even know of, we
Yeah.
haven't heard of, but they are
Mm,
doing a remarkable, amazing work and contribution
absolutely.
to the
Mm.
profession.
Can't agree more
And
with my
yes,
research also.
absolutely. There are so many out there,
Yes.
and you have to go. And thanks to Wiki, because we now have our state council. So, coming
Mm,
across all regions of the country,
mm,
there is amazing work being done by women all
mm,
over,
mm,
but they just choose to, as I would say, be in oblivion. They are just
mm,
doing their own thing, contributing uh, to to the profession, bringing in good spaces for people, and they're happy about that. They are not
mm,
choosing to come into limelight. I
mm,
think that also I feel is one thing is what women should do. We need to start speaking about ourselves. We need to
Hmm.
start talking about ourselves.
Hmm.
We need
Hmm.
to voice ourselves and let
Hmm.
the world know that we are there. But we choose
Absolutely.
not to. Many choose not to,
Hmm.
and that is what I feel is lacking in us as such. I mean, even at
Hmm.
home, or whatever you see, women across do not, even if they're doing the good work, they will not choose to raise their voice and let the world know
Hmm.
about it,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm. Hmm.
as against the men who would.
Hmm.
So that is
Hmm.
why, very rightly said, if you were to ask any student today, name 5 top architects, they will not name any woman, or probably just a Zaha Hadid amongst all the others,
I
because
grew
she
up,
was out
yes.
there. She was
Yeah.
out there, you know,
Hmm.
and I'm
And
glad
she
she was there.
also early career. I mean,
I
I
know,
grew up with
and
DB
I'm
contractor
glad.
in my dreams. I just
So
grew up with DB
there are
contractor.
so many. Yes, see, there you go. But there are so many names out there
Yes.
women we
Hmm.
know of now who are leading amazing
Hmm.
practices, doing very
Hmm.
good work. We know of very many, but
Hmm.
much more than them we do not even know of, you know.
Mhm.
So I just
Absolutely. I mean,
always
I'm
keep.
figuring it out here.
Yes,
Yes.
and I keep telling everybody and all the young ones, whenever you're doing work, whatever you do, speak for yourselves. Do not
Hmm.
feel shy. Be out there.
Hmm.
Question, talk, reason. You must raise your voice. You must let the world know we are
Absolutely.
there. That is
Yeah.
very important.
Absolutely. And in the earlier research before starting this, I also realized, and it is still holds true apart from they not getting into the limelight, that there has been a serious lack of documenting and disseminating your work.
Yes.
Because when I look through history, architects who have become famous are the ones who not only made good buildings, but they wrote about it, they wrote their ideas, their concepts, they published, they promoted. So you may call it self-promotion, you may call it the promotion of the work, both ways.
Yes.
And I think we have lacked it so much, and that's my early findings. And and it will take some time for people to know. I mean, we are still in a situation, and I can tell you that you go to any school and college and ask for 5 big women architects. The definition of woman and big and successful is already made up, I will say masculine. I mean,
Yeah.
personally, I have that understanding of it, that successful itself is a masculine definition, and big architect or
No,
that also keeps many women away from this limelight business.
absolutely. That way I was fortunate enough because having come from Chandigarh,
Hmm.
having lived in all my life, I mean, not all my life, all my childhood years, in a house designed by Jane Rue as part of the
Oh, wow.
Corbusier team,
Yes.
so I feel blessed, and having had Mrs. Yui Chaudhary
Yes.
as a colleague of my father, and having known her
Mm,
throughout my childhood, of somebody coming home
mm,
regularly.
mm.
So, I have seen those women and actually looked up to them. And
Yes, I'm sure.
yes,
Yeah,
so you do, like you said, you do need some role models. You need to
absolutely.
know that there are women and you can also do
Make
something
it.
like that.
Yes.
That's what youngsters must also know about.
Yeah, that's the whole purpose of doing this series also, Sabina, that we disseminate it to as many people. I mean, of course, you have your own space and identity and much more known than our series that is doing. But this is a small contribution. Also, in these conversations, we are trying to see how architecture is defined and delimited by many women practitioners, probably, and that is one of the reasons why also they are not having that famous tag, some
Yes,
of them,
yes,
because they have diversified and so on. So that brings me to the penultimate question, actually. And it is a hypothetical question. You have to dream little bit and imagination, which we are good at. So imagine a situation in a society, either in the past or in the future, that most, as of today, like 90% of famous architects in the country are men. And this is a very vague number, it's not exact number. But imagine 90%, 80% famous architects of the country are women. What is the change you can envisage in the overall built environment and buildings? It's a hypothetical situation. Not that I wish at that kind of time to arrive. I would like, as I said in my opening remark, that it is for making an equitable society and
yes,
especially for equitable profession. But it is just like, again, giving a very, I will say naive justification. When we aim for 100 marks in school or an exam, then we achieve 70, 80 marks. So this question is based on that kind of hypothesis that imagine what will be the change if women were leading the profession.
Yeah, so like you said, of course, having an equitable balance is always the best option, and yeah, that is what we all, as women in the profession, are also working towards to reach that equitable mark. But what you're
Yes.
asking is that if we become the majority, is
Yes.
wow, to wake up to that dream, I think would be really beautiful, in the sense, like I
Mhm.
mentioned earlier, that the society would definitely become more happier, more inclusive, more sustainable,
Mhm.
what would I say, more creative in terms of
Mhm.
being safe for everyone.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think it'll just bring more smiles to
Mhm.
everyone's faces, you
Yeah,
know. And
absolutely.
yeah, so that's what I feel.
Mm.
I mean,
As healthy and
we
happy
I think
cities,
I think
probably.
having done that on a larger scale, like you're saying, let it be a
Mm.
dream. We do have different silos. Like the
Mm.
offices, my office at one point was all more women centric. So we do
Okay.
have these kind of situations in silos. There are very many
Mm.
offices I know which are women dominated. In the sense,
Mm-hmm.
when I say, it means more women in the profession.
Mm.
So what you're
Mm-hmm.
talking of is a larger utopian situation, but those situations are there
Are
at the smaller
happening.
level. So if all of
Mm.
that was just to come up at the larger scale, yes, the world would still be a better place to live in.
Absolutely. And this question comes from the fact that we have so many challenges in the way built environment, unsustainable buildings, and cities are becoming highly unsustainable to all kinds of pressures. And
Yeah.
would that change if there were more women? And I'm getting very interesting response in this question. And that brings me to the last question of this conversation and that is simply a message to the younger generation. And I would request you to give the message in two parts. One is why we need more people in architecture, and this is because the architecture profession is still a ghost or unknown profession to most people in the country. And what little behavioral change we should do in the profession. I mean, when I'm saying in the profession, of course, in workplace, site, and everywhere, that woman feels more belonging. So we call it in science as engendering the profession. So what
Mhm.
are the behavioral? And this is not focused only to, giving gyan to only young women. It's for the whole profession.
It's for
The moment,
absolutely.
yeah, at the moment, men also realize that women are women in architecture and likewise the girls, as you said in the beginning. So what will
Yeah.
be your message? We want to use this message later on for promotion blood.
Okay. So first of all, definitely I will encourage young ones to join architecture. You said why we need more architects. Definitely we need great minds that can keep designing, bringing creativity to the built spaces. Lots of people around there. We are a huge population across the globe. We definitely need more thinking minds. And so architects, I mean, young ones should definitely take this up as a profession. It's highly creative. It gets you to think very analytically, and it opens up lots and lots of avenues, like I mentioned, post your graduation. And there is so many wonderful things that you can be doing after this education. And across all the young ones, what you need to be doing is um, the little sensitivity when you bring to the profession is follow your passion. Never give up your passion for the profession. Question yourselves, gain knowledge whichever way you can. Get tech savvy. It's the time of AI. Please get tech savvy.
Yes.
Use technology along with your creativity to create interesting things and interesting spaces, and which are more sustainable, more inclusive. So I think that is what one should, and never shirk hard work. Architecture is a very tough profession. You so
Mm.
so never shirk hard work. Hard work always pays. So that's what I always
Absolutely.
just tell them. Just
Yeah.
follow your passion and persevere. That always pays.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And this is also a moment for you. If you have any question for me, this is the time, and then I will do the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Mansi. It's been lovely talking to you. And you did mention that you have been working over so many years with water in architecture.
Yes.
So, what exactly is that you are doing? If you can let me know, let
Oh,
us all
yes,
know.
definitely. Definitely. I mean, I work on water resource management and water governance, and with a belief that water management is people management. And the fact that architecture education and planning education is still not teaching water in the way it should be. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, 5 years of architecture education and not even one credit of water course. So, I'm more in the water education space. That
Mm-hmm.
at least, let's say in second year, if you are teaching all kinds of building materials, water itself is a building material in architecture. We don't teach water,
True.
and that is, I think, a big drawback in the way urbanization is happening, considering that water is unlimited resource and we are consuming, and building industry consumes, infrastructure consumes, as you know, 40% of the global water footprint. And
Absolutely.
if we are
Yeah.
not teaching, and then there is lakefront, there is waterfront. My personal research is specialization is on lakes, how
Mm-hmm.
lakes should be saved or conserved or developed or restored. And
Right.
in the larger purview, then I, of course, get into talking about water and planning of cities and planning of neighborhoods. So in my earlier years of consultancy, all our projects, we also do large scale projects. My husband is also landscape architect and doing wonderful projects. In all our projects, water conservation, afforestation, wastewater reuse are our USP, apart from master planning. So
Right.
architecture for us I mean, architecture in the building sense for both of us comes at the end of the pipe, not at the beginning of it. And in most of our projects, we have specialized architects who are doing the buildings. So
Mm-hmm.
then we both of us focus on more ecosystems, regeneration and development. That's the consultancy part. But now I have drifted so much far into research and education that I just teach about water in architecture in various scales, from
Mm-hmm.
building, so making a net zero building, to even talking about how one must do site planning to make sure that 100% water is saved in the site,
Right.
and so on and so forth, how policy should come up and all kinds of things. I mean, I now live in such a space that I am neither an academician nor an architect, not even a scientist, but I enjoy this space because I can look at water from various angles. But a lot of research focuses on governance. What should people do? And my favorite is what people should not do with water, conserve water.
Oh,
So I focus
absolutely,
there.
absolutely. How brilliant. Water is the elixir of life. Water is,
Absolutely.
we
But
cannot do
it is
anything without
missing, yeah,
water.
it is missing.
But
It is missing in
yeah, it is
architecture education. And
so
I mean,
true.
like you, I also led the Water Resource Council for 4 years in Wiki. And we have run a similar, by the way, conversation series with Women in Water, Women
Lovely,
for Water. And we closed it after 103 sessions with Medha Patkar doing the closing session. And
lovely.
there itself is a very rich repository, which we are now trying to make science out of it. And of course, there will be a book out of it as well. That
Hmm.
ran for 4 years. So 103 sessions, 128 women. I interviewed, just like the way I'm doing with you. We have questions
Right.
again for water. So these are the different ways we are trying to create, because in water sector also there is a serious shortage of women leadership. So both the research are going parallel for me right now.
Wonderful,
So
wonderful. Congratulations to you for your research and all the very best.
thank you so much, Sabina. And I would say and close this with a disclaimer that in no way this study talks about that having more women may not engender the profession, but and the practice. And it is also about more feministic values. And we are seeing again and again when we are talking to all our speakers here that there is something about not having more women or having more men, that but it is more beyond having feministic values or masculinity
True.
in the profession. I would wish to
Yes,
live a day when we don't have to talk about gender actually, and the profession becomes
absolutely.
gender less and gender neutral for that matter. But the issue of
Yes.
women and men, will arise until and unless we are not really having an equitable profession, because it is also impacting having an equitable and sustainable society. The more I am interacting to all of you, the emphatic, enlightened women, I am realizing the deep contribution women are making in this. And not only engendering the profession and practice, but also delimiting the very definition and refining the definition of architecture, which was so confined to making buildings. Thank you so much, Sabina Khanna, for the enlightening interaction. May you remain an inspiration. I have been looking up to you for long, many years, and this is the first time we are having this formal interaction. I'm grateful to have learned a bit about your endeavors. We cannot learn everything in an hour, and about you as a person, as a human being. I wish you all the best to continue your endeavors and keep inspiring us and keep posting about your
Thank you
endeavors.
so
Thank
much,
you so much.
Mansi. It's been
Thanks a
lovely
lot.
talking to you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Take care. Bye.
Bye.